Book it.
I'm not as well read as I'd like to be. There's just no time to read.
If you're like me, you're always on the go.
And there's always so much work to do. Either I'm busy cooking dinner, or I just have no read. Even hard finding time to reflect, pray, and meditate.
Follow me to find your next read. Adult story time for professionals.
Book it. Okay, so I'm here in my office, as I do every episode of Adult Storytime for Professionals. And by the way, I'm Ramela Janine Al-Karzezi, PhD in IO Psychology, BA in Economics, and so I have a fairly scientific mind, and I like to kind of know and understand how things work. The Thing Explainer is the book that we'll be looking at this week, and it's by Randall Munroe, who is also the author of What If and creator of XKCD. I don't know what that is, but okay. And I don't know how you would actually maybe say that as a word, so I just went for saying each letter. But anyway, big words that tell you what this book is. Thing Explainer. Complicated stuff in simple words. So I like the idea of this. The back cover has lots of, sort of scientific stuff on the back here. And so I thought it might be, pretty interesting to know. So like, for example, here, R star, really hot part where all of the heat comes from. Here's a hot part, cooler part, but still hot is in parentheses there. Part where it gets really hot again, and we don't really understand why. So this is, basically a diagram of the sun. As you can see, this is a book that I borrowed from the library, and let's see, from the creator of the web comic. Oh, see, it's a web comic. I didn't know that. XKCD, and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, What If? A series of brilliantly and simply annotated blueprints that explain everything from nuclear reactors to ballpoint pens. Have you ever tried to learn more about some incredible thing only to be frustrated by incomprehensible jargon? Randall Munroe is here to help. In The Thing Explainer, he uses line drawings and only 1,000, or rather 1,000, that's in quotes, most common words to provide simple explanations for some of the most interesting stuff there is, including food heating radio boxes, i.e. microwaves, tall roads, bridges, computer buildings, data centers, the shared space house, the International Space Station, the other worlds around the sun, i.e. the solar system, the big flat rocks that we live on, tectonic plates, the pieces everything is made of. Okay, I don't know if I go with this, but that's supposed to be the periodic table. The pieces that everything is made of. I don't know if I would describe it that way, but okay. But I guess, I don't know. Sky boats with turning wings, that's helicopters. Boxes that make clothes smell better, washers and dryers. The bags of stuff inside you, human organs. I guess they are bags of stuff. Like your stomach, kind of really looks like, it's I don't know, a little pouch bag or something, but I don't know if I like bags of stuff as an explanation. Anyway, how do these things work? Where do they come from? What would life be like without them? And what would happen if we opened them up, heated them up, cooled them down, pointed them in a different direction, or pressed this button? In The Thing Explainer, Munroe gives us the answers to these questions and so many more. Funny, interesting, and always understandable, this book is for everyone from age 5 to 105 who has ever wondered how things work and why. All right, so that was interesting getting through it. But here's some of the, I guess this is the computer building, so this is like a data center or something. I like the illustrations. I like the illustrations so far. If you're just joining Adult Storytime for Professionals, or watching this for the first time, I should say, Adult Storytime for Professionals is where I try and give you an overview of a book. One book for half hour, and I talk about it, and I share my insights. I read excerpts. I don't give a thumbs up or thumbs down about it. I let you decide if it's worth your time to read, and then I'll tell you if I'm thinking that if I want to try to commit to finish reading the book myself. Again, you make your own decisions about if it's worth you investing in the book or running to the library to borrow and spending the time to actually peruse it. So, let's get back into it. The Thing, I like the Thing Explainer. Complicated stuff in simple words. So the graphics of this book so far are really great, and I like graphics. Again, it's by Randall Munroe, and things in this book by page. So instead of saying table of contents, things in this book by page. I like it. So the page before this book starts, which is the introduction. Shared Space House, which is the International Space Station. Tiny bags of water you're made of. So that's the animal cell. So I guess he views parts of the human body as bags. Again, I don't know if I'm on board with that, but okay. How to count things, units of measurement, rooms for helping people, hospital bed. That's a great description. I like that one. That's a good one. Machine for burning cities, nuclear bomb. Okay, let's stop with that right there. And that machine for burning cities, nuclear bomb, is on page 24. So without further ado, we're going to go to page 24. Oh my goodness gracious, will you look at that? Will you look at that? Very, very dense. But it does look to be simple drawings. And just from the density of this page, I think you actually could understand how nuclear bomb works. So let's read a little bit. All right. Machine for burning cities. At the end of the biggest war in history, less than 100 years before this book was written, some people figured out how to make a small piece of heavy metal heat up like the sun. They could make the metal get hot, so hot that it would blow up with enough light and fire to burn a whole city and send up clouds of dust that made people sick. That's a very good way to describe the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So far this book is getting an A in terms of describing that concept. Two of the machines were used in that war, and each one burned a city and killed many, many people. After the war, we learned to make the fire from the machines even bigger and hotter, and build flying carriers that could send them anywhere in the world in just a few minutes. So the flying carriers is obviously a reference to interballistic missiles and that sort of thing. There was no way to stop these machines, so many countries built them and hid them underground so that no one could attack them without getting attacked back. Everyone worried that a new war would start any minute. We spent many years like that, each side waiting for the other to attack and start the war that would end the world. We're less afraid now. Most people don't think that war will happen, but we still have the machines. So, okay, let me stop there, and I'll go back to it. So this book was written in 2015, or published in 2015. At the time, I think that was true, but I don't know. A lot of people are kind of scared now, so. Yeah, nuclear proliferation, not good. The first runaway fire. Everything is made of tiny pieces. Around the start of the Second World War, we learned that the pieces of a few special heavy metals could be made to break in half. We also learned that when they break, they let out a little flash of heat and some tiny fast pieces. The machine. The first machines had one part that blew up, but a few years later, we learned to make the fire a lot bigger by putting two parts together. The top part uses a normal fire to start the runaway fire in that special metal. Then the bottom part uses that special fire to start an even bigger runaway fire in a light air or metal. That second fire is the kind that powers the sun. So that light air is a reference to hydrogen. Light metal runaway fire can let out even more power than the heavy metal kind, but it takes so much heat and force to get it started that we can only do it with the help of a runaway fire in a heavy metal. So, I don't know what a light versus heavy metal is. I guess we would have to go back to the elements part and read that. Obviously, maybe mercury is somehow involved. I'm guessing. I didn't read this, so let me not speculate. The pieces everything is made of. So, in the diagram here, this is, I guess, the first part that we just read about and the second part. So, the first part basically sets this part on fire, which has more power, and that's where everything gets going. So, the parts of the machine. There's fire, plastic, this is the normal kind of stuff people use to blow up things. So plastic explosives, I guess. Starter, tiny fire maker, which I guess is a spark plug or something. A hole, this is padding. This is for adding some special air right before the machine goes off to help the runaway fire start. So some sort of unstable oxygen atom, I'm guessing. I don't know, maybe just some sort of dioxide or I don't know, oxygen-3, ozone, or don't know. But so anyway, I think by going through all of this, you really would get an understanding of how a bomb works, so long as you maybe have a vocabulary for understanding some other stuff. But if you're reading this to a 5-year-old, because again, they're saying from 5 to 105, this is really good for a 5-year-old. And you as an adult with some knowledge already can kind of put this in more, adult terms. Yeah, but that seems to be that. So, and then the next page is the computer building, but I don't want to do that one. Oh, this is a nice diagram. of the U.S. space team's Upgoer 5. Upgoer 5. It's weird reading it this way. U.S. space team's Upgoer 5. So this is the space shuttle, and I guess the 5th version of the shuttle. This is the only space boat that's landed people on another world. People landed on the moon with it 6 times, all about half 100 years before this book was written. After those visits to the moon, we stopped using the space boat to go to other worlds. The U.S. space team used the boat one last time to send up their first space house. After people visited the house a few times, it fell back down. Pieces of it landed in a small town. The town told the U.S. space team to pay a fine for dropping the stuff on the ground. All right, I'm wondering what was the name of that town. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty. That's a cute little description. Obviously not cute if anyone got hurt. So I don't know if anyone got hurt in that, and I don't know where it was, but that was kind of an interesting thing there. So it has bending computers. So I guess for your laptop to fold over. That's pretty cool. All right, so let me read that a little bit. How to open a computer. So the screen, the touch box, the outside, which is the plastic or metal, keys, you can press these to put words on the computer, to put words in the computer. So anyway, you can touch this point, the touching box. You can touch this point at things on screen. Some computers can fail when you touch the screen itself, so you don't need to use this box. But even on those computers, using the box can be easier because you don't have to lift your hand. That sounds a little lazy, but technically true, but it just sounds a little lazy. I don't know. All right. The bottom piece, turning holders, and you don't lose these. So I guess these are screws. Turning holders are screws. Okay, and stickers that yell at you. I don't know. These are put there by the company that made the computer to tell you that if you open the computer and then it breaks, they don't have to fix it. Legal disclaimers, that's a good one. Alrighty, let's see here. What else is in this book? Talks about the Earth's surface. So let's see here. The Earth's surface. Places where there's lots of trees. Places where the rocks are old. Places where it snows. Places where a lot of people live. Places where the earth shakes a lot, so earthquakes, ring of fire. Seas with big warm circle storms. So hurricanes and typhoons. Places with lots of flashing lights, so areas that are prone to lightning. You know, I didn't know that there was a geographical difference in that. Like continent-wise. I mean, I know, for example, Kansas, you're more likely to get, the thunderstorms and the tornadoes and whatnot. But it seems to be like that's not really an issue in Europe, which is kind of surprising to me. I don't know why, but I just thought that, lightning and tornadoes were a concern everywhere. But apparently, it's more so in other parts. And let's see. Places where long spinning clouds reach down from storms and blow things away. Okay, well that's different. So this is where you get the tornadoes, and this is just lightning. So there's not really a lot of tornadoes here, but there's lots of lightning. All right, so that was pretty cool, learning that little tidbit. That's like a nice little random, factoid you could impress somebody with at some, networking event. Okay, let's see. I really don't want to do that tiny bags that you're made of. Oh. All right, so anyway, let me just walk it back a little bit and talk about why he wrote this book. Hi! On the page before the book starts, which is technically the introduction, this book is a book of pictures and simple words. Each page explains how something important or interesting works using only 1,000 words in our language that people use the most. This page is here to say hello and to explain why the book is like this. I've spent a lot of time, sorry, I'm reading what I want to read. Maybe that's a sign. I've spent a lot of my life worried that people will think I don't know enough. Sometimes that worry has made me use big words when I don't need to. One thing that I've sometimes used big words for is the shape of the world. The world is round, but not exactly round. Because of how it spins, it's a little wider around the middle. If you're building a space boat that's going to fly around the world, you have to be clear about what shape the world is. And there are some big words that you can use instead of round. But most of the time, it doesn't matter exactly what the shape is, so people just say round. When I was in school, I learned about space boats and learned to use lots of big words for things like the shape of the world. Sometimes I would use those big words because they were different from the small words in an important way. But a lot of the time, I was just really worried that if I used small words, someone might think I didn't know the big ones. Isn't that the truth? You're like in a meeting, and you say something simplistically, and people are like, okay, does she really grasp what's going on? And it's like, yeah, with all the extra letters behind my name, I obviously know a couple of 50-cent words, but, make it plain, Why go through all of that? So I like this author's point there. I liked writing this book because it made me let go of my fear of sounding stupid. After all, when you're saying things like space boats and water pushers, everything sounds stupid. Using simple words let me stop worrying so much. I could just have had fun making up new names for things and trying to explain cool ideas in new ways. Some people say that there's no reason to learn big words in the first place. All that matters is knowing what things do, not what they're called. I don't think that that's always true. To really learn about things, you need help from other people. And if you want to understand those people, you need to know what they mean by the words that they use. Cultural relevance, I like that. Nice way to slip that in. You also need to know what things are called so you can ask questions about them. Correct? But there are lots of other books that explain what things are called. This book explains what they do. Okay, I'm done talking about the book now. Turn the page to learn about space. All right. And then it has the space shared house, which I don't know why I'm just not into that. Now let me go back to the table of contents here, which is, I guess, things in this book by page, and see if there's something interesting. All right, so they've got a tree. They've got a tree. Let's look at trees. Okay, so that is actually page 23. Okay, that's a pretty cool diagram. I like that. And it's hard to believe, and I wouldn't dare waste my time counting, but this is pretty dense. So it seems like maybe there's more than 1,000 words, but I trust the author that there really are only 1,000 words. It just seems dense. But anyway, so we've got, I guess, some little ecosystem of the tree. explaining more than just what a tree is, but I guess the purpose that it serves in the environment, which is actually pretty cool. So up here, I know you can't really see that, but there's leaves. And tree makes power from the sun's light using leaves. The green stuff in leaves eats light and the kind of air we breathe out. And it turns it into power and the kind of air we breathe in. That's a really good explanation of how trees filter the air. I like that. All right, so growing up is right here, and it says trees grow taller only by making the ends of their branches longer. The spot where a branch joins the main part of the tree is never lifted higher. Okay, yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, they have something about a pointy cat. I'm not into that. While tall and wide trees. So there's a little diagram of different types of trees. Tall and wide trees. The same kind of tree can grow tall or wide. If there are other trees around, they'll mostly grow up, each one trying to get above the others to reach the sun's light. So there's competition amongst trees. I think we knew that, but anyway. If a tree is growing alone in a field, it will spread out its branches more. It will spread branches out to the side so it can catch more light. Sorry about that, I was reading like 2 sentences at once. Let's see. Dirt branches. So instead of saying roots, dirt branches. Trees grow branches down into the ground like the ones in the air. The air branches get light from the sun, while the ground branches get water and food from the dirt. They spread out often farther than the air branches, but usually not very deep. And that's true. All right, so they have a little diagram, I guess, of everything that's kind of living typically at the base of a tree. All right, so that's the buzzer, people, meaning that this episode of Adult Storytime for Professionals is drawing to a close. Give me a minute to turn off the buzzer. All right, so we're back at it here. So there's a whole ecosystem down here, which I kind of like, you know, long ear jumpers for rabbits, little hole makers, which I guess are moles, or gophers, long hole makers, whichever one's different. I don't know, is this the mole or is this the gopher? I don't know. And then there's tiny dog, which is interesting. I guess a fox does burrow into the ground, but and then there's some nasty snakes, so which are described as long biters without arms or legs, sleeping. All things considered, this book, Thing Explainer, complicated stuff in simple words, is a good book for children. I know that it basically says it's also for adults, and there are some things in there that just even going through this now with you, I learned about. I think it's one of those books for adults. It would be a cool coffee table book, but if you have small children, this probably would be a good way to explain a lot of stuff to them that would otherwise be very hard to do. So, you know, kind of you have to give him credit for that. So again, this book is by Randall Munroe, and The Thing Explainer. You know, again, don't ever give you a recommendation of to buy or not to buy. Really, it's about reading or not reading, to be honest. I don't think I will continue to read this book, but I think it's a good book for people who have small children or just want something, you know, educational looking on their coffee table. All right, so thank you for watching this episode of Adult Storytime for Professionals. See you next time. Bye.
Book it.